Hello, it's a lovely good evening and welcome to Camnet Television News. My name is Jeffrey Ziambo to present. Our top stories in the news tonight: a non-LUSAKA woman dumps a fetus. A political activist calls for investigations of ministers. Government argues its case for challenging the legality of LUNGU'S immunity. In international news, clashes between ethnic groups continue in the Blue Nile of Sudan. And in sports news, FAS lodges complaint to CAF over Ethiopian referee.
The Agriculture and Commercial Show is back, bigger and better under the theme Innovation Through Technology. And as Camnet TV, we are here to transform your business through our technology. Advertise with us on discounted rates during the month of July and during the Agriculture and Commercial Show. Special price package for live stunt interviews, on-screen product placement during the coverage of the show. For more details, call the following numbers. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Hello once again, another news in detail. Part of the body belonging to a baby, estimated to be around 7 months in the womb, has been eaten by a dog in Lusaka's Kalingalinga compound after the baby was allegedly aborted and dumped. Residents explained that they spotted a dog carrying a baby in its mouth with the baby's umbilical cord still hanging on Tuesday afternoon, forcing them to beat the dog to release the baby, which they discovered to have been aborted as the baby was not fully formed. They have called for the tightening of police patrols in the night to bring to book offenders, stating that this is the second time in a short space of time that an aborted baby has been found in the area. More in this report.
This is Kapeshi overspill in Lusaka's Kalingalinga compound, where a baby has been found dumped. According to the residents, it was around 13 hours on the afternoon of Tuesday, 19th July 2022, when they spotted a dog with a baby in its mouth with the baby's umbilical cord still hanging. Upon a closer inspection, mothers in the area said that the baby could have been around 7 months in the womb and was aborted. The residents here have expressed concern, stating that this is not the first time that such an incident has happened, stating that there are many boarding houses in this area which necessitates a closer inspection of students at boarding houses to prevent such incidents.
Mwana ya dia mendo yonse kudia kulimbwa sitinaoneke bwino mwandi tipempa abantu muna ma boarding house kuno Kalingalinga Castan monitor bana bakazi bamemukala na baminoita ma rent manimba mwanda sitinaoneke bwino mwandi mwana kononga umoyo munga sitsumuntu munga niimbwa awo sitinakondwelese mwandi siwazimayi tent kaziona ayo cyane banzatu benango walidira bana but bantu benango ataya bana mimba nze ikulu ioneka ni 7 months or 8 months so mwana bwino mkulu sinaoneke bwino mwancha alili sana chevechi
mbali kwanga navira kuipa chanikwira na chikonko kozi sivamushe mwandi kutaya mwana ni burden ikulu maningi ichaipa chemwandi kuviko nkazi Christian nation si ka first na vachitika several times na kudala paja uko kuja kubini kuja kumabini venze finachibwa vachitika hapo so chapo
students va ino road yatu vachitache uhule uri benzeni vadziva kuti kumaparents kwavo valaira kuti vaende opunzira kansi kuno vaboshika uhule awesa mwanjini yayi
usikobula kamwana kang'ono katuza taimo kudi imbwa ikudia mwana uku so na vindepetesa tamangirako and for sure what is Africa tapeza imbwa ikudia mwana so apa mai venango after babwera mandi kwamo kumenya manje imbwa kuti icho keko manje so ndepetesa chokako nice.
They have further called for police patrols, stating that most of these babies are dumped in the night, adding that police patrols could actually identify such incidents and prevent them from recurring. The residents emphasize that what is important is to bring the perpetrator to book to warn would-be offenders, stating that police investigations should yield fruit. According to the Zambian laws, the crime of abortion carries a sentence of up to 7 years. The residents have also called for more sensitization on preventive measures of getting pregnant, such as contraceptives, to prevent such incidents. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
A Zambia Police Service paramilitary officer has narrated before the Lusaka High Court how a fellow cop pointed an AK-47 rifle to his face and later woke up in hospital with a big wound on his right ear. Wamunyima Mubiana, 24, narrated that when he gained consciousness, his friend on the other bedside informed him that he had been shot at when he was at a drinking place in North Mid Market in Lusaka. This is in a case where Pumulo Molife, a 27-year-old police officer under paramilitary battalion unit, is charged with causing grievous harm with intent to maim. More in this report.
Having allegedly shot his fellow police officer earlier this year after a dispute, 27-year-old Pumulo Molife, a Zambia police officer under paramilitary unit, appeared before the Lusaka High Court Tuesday to stand trial on one count of causing grievous harm. In a fully packed court, 24-year-old Wamunyima Mubiana, a Zambia police officer, testified how his fellow cop pointed an AK-47 rifle to his face, and later he woke up at the University Teaching Hospital with a big wound on his right ear. In his testimony, the state witness informed the court that when he gained conscious, one of his friends who was at the bedside informed him that he had been shot at when he was at a drinking place in Lusaka's North Mid Market. According to Constable Mubiana, the reason he was allegedly shot was because he had refused to buy beer for Constable Pumulo Molife, who he had just met at the same drinking place in North Mid Market. In this case, Officer Pumulo Molife is accused of having, on the 26th of February 2022, with intent, caused grievous bodily harm to Mr. Mubiana. The officer has pleaded not guilty to the charge and is appearing before Judge Timothy Katenikwa. Earlier, the witness testified that on the fateful day, he was in the company of his friend, also a police officer, and around 20 to 21 hours, he went to North Mid where he met the accused person. However, whilst they were having a good time, the accused started harassing him and requesting for money, and he later pulled his clothes and started beating him. The witness told the court that the accused got a gun, dropped the safeguard, clocked it, and pointed to his face, and the next thing, he woke up. He was at the University Teaching Hospital. Trial continues in this case. Miriam Kaimba reporting for Camnet TV News.
Government has argued before the Constitutional Court that it is on firm ground to challenge the legality of the immunity agreement that former Konkola Copper Mines provisional liquidator Milingo Lungu is alleging to have been granted by the Director of Public Prosecution Lilian Siuni. This is in a matter where Mr. Lungu has petitioned the state and its agents in the Constitutional Court over his rearrest on allegations he bought a house using illegal gains when they entered into a pact to exempt him from prosecution, and after he rendered the mining firm's account records and relinquished his position. However, in the latest submission, the state seeks that the court declare illegal the purported immunity Mr. Lungu is alleged to have been granted, as it is against public interest and an abuse of the court process. More in this report.
On whether the former Konkola Copper Mines provisional liquidator Milingo Lungu was given immunity continues to be debated upon before the courts of law, with the Attorney General Molilo Kabesha telling the Constitutional Court in the state's latest submission that contrary to Mr. Milingo Lungu's assertion, the state is capable of bringing a petition or cross-petition before court. This is in a matter where Mr. Lungu has petitioned the state and its agent in the Constitutional Court over his rearrest on allegation that he bought a house using illegal gains when they entered into a pact to exempt him from prosecution after he rendered the mining firm's account records and relinquished his position. However, the state cross-petitioned and demanded that the Constitutional Court declare illegal the purported immunity dated 22nd March 2022 granted to Mr. Lungu, as it is against public interest and an abuse to court process. In their latest submission on why the court should not dismiss their cross-petition, the state argue that despite the Attorney General having a mandate to represent the Director of Public Prosecution in all proceedings in any relief sought, such representation ought to be for an act and omission within the confines of the Constitution, further submitting that Mr. Lungu's application to dismiss their cross-petition be dismissed with cost. In this case, Mr. Lungu claimed to have negotiated for his freedom with President Hakainde Hichilema's principal private secretary, legal advisor, the Attorney General, Solicitor General, the Administrator General, and the Director of Public Prosecution, and he said his rearrest had no legal effect owing to the discontinuance of his criminal proceedings by the latter, arguing that the Drug Enforcement Commission's decision to rearrest him for possessing property suspected to be proceeds of crime was in breach of the agreement he signed with the state's agent, as it was unreasonable and an abuse of criminal proceedings to seize his property, arrest, charge, and prosecute him for his act that KCM had not complained of. However, the state also argues that the document purporting to be an immunity agreement signed between Mr. Lungu and the Director of Public Prosecution is against public interest and an abuse of the court process, and it is illegal and void. The state also argues that the immunity and the discontinuance of the charge of theft of 4.4 million and money laundering deal was exclusively done by the Director of Public Prosecution in the purported exercise of her powers and not as directed by any government official. We wait to see how this case unfolds. Miriam Kaimba reporting for Camnet TV News.
Political activist Dante Saunders says calls for ministers and other high government officials under the current administration to be investigated for corruption while in office are welcome. Mr. Saunders says this will prevent wastage of colossal sums of money in investigating the said officials after they are out of office. In an interview, Mr. Saunders says the recent declaration of assets by ministers, members of parliament and other senior government officials should be commended by all well-meaning Zambians. He was reacting to sentiments by Patriotic Front acting president Mr. Given Luminda during a media briefing on Monday that ministers and members of parliament under the current administration should be investigated for corruption, stating that some declarations of assets are too hefty for those who have been civil servants all their lives. More in this report.
Stakeholders on the political scene have weighed in on the recent declaration of assets by ministers, members of parliament, and high government officials, stating that some declarations, especially for those who have been civil servants all their lives, call for investigations, stating that these are too hefty. Among those who have been adding their voice is the opposition Patriotic Front PF, who during a press briefing on Monday questioned why the declaration of assets has been done nearly close to a year in office since 12th August, leaving room for illegalities. The PF have been demanding that it is only fair for these people to be investigated if the Drug Enforcement Commission DEC is investigating former President Edgar Lungu's wife Esther Lungu on her 15 flats which are suspected to be proceeds of crime. In an interview, a political activist, Mr. Dante Saunders, has reacted to the happenings on the political scene.
You know, it's public knowledge. We all know what has gone missing. And we all know what kind of wealth that somebody should have had when they were serving in government as civil servants. And mind you, politicians, in my view, if you look at the constitution properly, they are not civil servants. They are not civil servants, so they are not entitled to a lot of issues, but they've been hiding behind this issue of we are civil servants. They are not civil servants. Civil servants are civil servants, and politicians, those people who go into power, basically have no right to even claim that they want to get gratuity, for instance. That's in my view, and in the view of many people in the streets.
He adds that while some concerns around the declaration of assets are relevant, the move should be applauded, as public declaration has been shunned in the past.
We have never ever seen it, and you know, I question even PF to come up and tell us that if there was such a thing happening during their time, so much money could have never gone missing, which the Auditor General report is clear on, and the FIC report is very clear on. All of these institutions have reported huge scales of monies that have gone missing. I mean, how do you account for monies that have gone missing, for instance, from the Ministry of Health? And so many thousands of people have died because there was no medicines in hospital.
The declaration of assets by public officials is in line with the Republican Constitution, which demands that public officials make a declaration of their assets upon entering office or before leaving to the Chief Justice. Zipporah Mshala, Camnet News, Lusaka.
Zambians United for Sustainable Development, ZUSD, President Lazarus Chisela says the successful hosting of the 4th African Union AU Media Summit presents opportunities for Zambia to achieve its 2030 goals of development as it focuses on the strengthening of institutions as a driver to this goal. In an interview, the party president states that the collaboration of Zambia with other African countries also presents an opportunity for the country to tap knowledge from other countries on how 4 key areas of the economy can be leveraged for optimum benefits. Mr. Chisela adds that while the AU was only attended by 5 heads of state out of the 13 expected, Zambia must be commended for successfully hosting the summit, as it is a step in the right direction. The opposition leader also says that the holding of such summits is necessary to help countries discuss common goals towards the attainment of Agenda 2063, which hopes to see a developed Africa.
If you look at the sustainable goals, they go beyond food security, job security, energy security, water security. And those are the basic needs of a human being. Those are the basic needs of a Zambian. You know, there is a challenge to access water, to access food, to access energy, to access, you know, all these basic needs. So, with sustainable goals, that's what they are looking at. They are also looking at the issue of, you know, safety of a Zambian, safety of an African. In terms of safety, we're talking about, you know, all those things that affect the girl child, all those things that affect the youth, all those things that affect, you know, the women. So I don't think it's, you know, it's sent a bad signal or it's a negative aspect. I wouldn't look at that. I would look at it as a positive that the 5 or 4 people who came, you know, they attended and they made decisions, and there were a lot of issues that were discussed and matters that were signed. So I'm very happy that this happened.
The Zambia Tourism Agency Acting Chief Executive Officer Chavunga Lungu is happy with the immediate and long-term tourism benefits the just ended 4th African Union Coordination Meeting has brought to the country. In an interview with Camnet News, Mr. Lungu says regardless of the low turnout of foreign delegates, hotels, restaurants and craftsmen did benefit from the meeting. He says in the long term, Zambia has set itself as a business tourism destination for the world as a country where international meetings can take place. More report.
Zambia last week hosted the 4th Mid-Year African Union Coordination Meeting that was to bring together 13 heads of state and over 1,000 delegates, but only 5 heads of states were present for the meeting that took place from the 14th to the 17th of July in Lusaka at the Kenneth Kaunda International Conference Center The meeting was aimed at to look at the current state of the African continent and find solutions for the numerous challenges the continent is facing. All stakeholders were ready and prepared to host the meeting, and the tourism industry in particular was ready to leverage on the benefits the meeting would bring to the country. Speaking to Camnet News, Zambia Tourism Agency Acting Chief Executive Officer Chavunga Lungu says as an agency, they are happy with both the immediate and long-term benefits the meeting has brought to the country.
From that angle, we benefited in the immediate. However, there's a medium-term and long-term benefit that we are seeing as a result of the meeting that was held. One, all eyes were on Zambia, the rest of the world, in terms of media coverage, so you can imagine those that did not know about Zambia now know about Zambia. The second thing is that we positioned ourselves as a business tourism destination. There's a business side of tourism known as MICE, which is meetings, incentives, conferences and events. And because of the meeting that we had with those number of delegates, the rest of the world can see that Zambia is a place where you can have international meetings. And because of international meetings, there are international delegates that get to travel in the long run, and they then tend to spend and leave this foreign exchange in this country. So from that angle, the Zambia Tourism Agency is happy with the hosting of this particular summit and the results that we got in the immediate term, in the medium term and in the long term for the country.
He further says players in the tourism industry should not relax but maintain the standards of their facilities and also accommodate domestic travelers in order to grow the tourism industry.
We all need to be ready for the numbers that might be coming into the country. This includes things, in our readiness, this includes things like getting our hotels graded and the standards of the hotels maintained so that we can project Zambia as a destination that has good quality facilities to host our visitors that come into the country. Apart from that, obviously from the Zambia Tourism Agency, when we say we are promoting tourism and travel, it's not only for international delegates, it's also for domestic players. So we are also asking those that are players within the hospitality industry to accommodate domestic travelers.
Cherish Sibote, reporting for Camnet News in Lusaka.
The National Union of Public and Private Educators of Zambia Executive President Victor Muyumba is calling on government to ensure that issues of upgrades and confirmation of teachers are resolved urgently. He says it is painful for teachers already serving that the newly deployed teachers have higher salaries than the serving despite having similar qualifications. Mr. Muyumba was speaking at a press briefing in Lusaka on Tuesday. He says they are confident that this will combat teacher shortages, especially in rural areas, and also reduce pupil-teacher ratio in schools. Mr. Muyumba has meanwhile commended government for honoring its promise of recruiting teachers, which he says presents hope for the teaching fraternity.
And profusely so, the UPND government for this unprecedented recruitment of teachers. We are talking about 30,400 plus teachers that have been recruited. Because we've been making this demand for quite some time, so it has turned now into a request. We have teachers already. Even these that have been deployed, the 30,000, have joined those that have been crying, and crying for a number of things. And critical to them right now are issues that border on confirmations and upgrades. Some of these 30,000 that are going to work as teachers were taught by these that are already there, and some of them are going in as degree holders, meaning they will be in higher salary scales than the people that taught them. If not kept, this can be morale dampening and not good for the Ministry of Education.
An environment expert, David Chapoloko, says there is need for government to create better alternative avenues for charcoal usage in the country as a means to end indiscriminate cutting of trees. In an interview with Camnet News, Mr. Chapoloko says the only way government can avert the use of charcoal is by creating an efficient and affordable alternative source of energy to the local people. He says most alternative sources of energy are either too expensive or scarce on the market, hence making it difficult for ordinary citizens to do away with charcoal. He has since called on government to invest in efficient technology that will enable alternative sources of energy to be easily accessible and affordable to the local people.
Zambia is one of the countries that has been adversely hit with severe impacts of climate change owing to many environmental factors that come to play. This has seen many changes in weather patterns as well as climate change effects on the environment in comparison to how it used to be in the past. Many organizations that advocate for the conservation of the environment, and indeed the government, have been calling on citizens to adopt climate-smart actions on the environment. One which has taken prominence is the advocacy for the end of deforestation, especially in rural areas, as a means to reserve the forestry of the country and prevent harmful effects on climate. However, this call has been ignored by many people as citizens have continued to cut down trees as a means to earn a living through charcoal burning. To this effect, an environment expert, David Chapoloko, says if government wants to put a stop to the indiscriminate cutting of trees, it must consider finding proper alternatives to charcoal usage.
So, let's say for instance, the people who are living in these urban areas, I agree that the only accessible, the most accessible source of energy that they could use to cook is charcoal, and the alternatives that are trending right now, if we can talk about let's say biogas, still that technology is being worked on. It's very expensive, as we may put it right now, but I think that even the trending technologies that we have, let's say for instance,
he says most alternative sources of energy that people can consider are too expensive for ordinary citizens.
It's a question of if people are gaining confidence into gas, then how can we make gas more cheaper so that it becomes a choice for the people who are living in the urban areas? And I think it's just a matter of investment. We have people who are learned, who can come up with more efficient technologies that will make such energy sources more cheap and very much accessible, and that is the only way we can promote alternatives for charcoal. But
Mr. Chapoloko has added that government should invest in innovations and technology that will create alternative sources of energy that will be cheap and accessible for everyone. Messi Chanika reporting for Camnet TV News in Lusaka.
You're watching Camnet TV and not just another channel. We'll take a break. We'll be back with more news after the break.
Your skin is the biggest muscle in your body. That's why we make sure that Oracle is #1 when it comes to taking care of your precious skin. Oracle Pure Petroleum Jelly and Glycerin soothes, moisturizes and keeps your skin perfect. Oracle Pure Petroleum products for that perfect skin.
The Agriculture and Commercial Show is back bigger and better under the theme Innovation Through Technology. And as Camnet TV, we are here to transform your business through our technology. Advertise with us on discounted rates during the month of July and during the Agriculture and Commercial Show. Special price package for live stunt interviews, on-screen product placement during the coverage of the show. For more details, call the following numbers. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Welcome back. We'll continue with the news. The Southern African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes, SACOD, has welcomed the government-proposed road traffic bill of 2022, indicating that once enacted, it will provide clear guidelines on the presidential motorcade. SACOD Executive Director Boniface Chembe says the bill is progressive in ensuring the country's democratic status is maintained, further calling upon mechanisms that will guarantee the independence of the law. And governance expert McDonald Chipenzi is of the view that, despite the move being commendable, he says special roads should be constructed in a systematic manner in the country. The Road Traffic Amendment Bill of 2022 is set to introduce a new provision, which is the right of way of presidential motorcade, which will also include the motorcade of the Vice President. Details in the following report.
In 2017, Republican President Hakainde Hichilema spent 127 days in jail for allegedly failing to give way to then-President Edgar Lungu's motorcade during the Kwamboka ceremony in Mongu, Western Province. He was charged with treason but later discharged with a nolle prosequi. In view of this offense, many stakeholders have debated on the importance of the law. However, government through the Ministry of Transport and Logistics is expected to pass a law in Parliament that will criminalize the blocking of presidential motorcade, where the offender will be slapped with a maximum of 6 months in jail, unlike treason as it was in 2017. Among other things, the law will seek to allow certain motor vehicles to stop or park at any place where it may be necessary, such as emergency rescue vehicles, Zambia police, or construction vehicles rendering essential public service, provided they display appropriate identification lamps. This move has elated the Southern African Center for Constructive Resolution of Disputes, SACOD, Executive Director Boniface Chembe, who feels the bill sets guidelines to the promotion of democratic tenets in the country.
Regulation is important in that people ought to know the consequences that come along with disturbance to motorcades that belong to some of the highest offices in the land, and we believe that when there is certain laws and regulations that are clear, it provides for an opportunity for the rights holders but also the duty bearers to be able to interact on the same footing or have an understanding at least of the law from the same footing, so that they are able to engage in responsible it basically provides guidelines, and when there are guidelines, especially laws, it is in line or it contributes to the whole notion of the rule of law. And when you have the rule of law and that is obeyed and implemented to its logical conclusion, it basically forms a very good basis upon which one is able to measure the strength.
Meanwhile, governance expert McDonald Chipenzi has challenged government to also consider constructing special lanes in the country. Mr. Chipenzi is optimistic that government will put up mechanisms that will ensure the effective utilization of the law.
Good development, which is also showing that we are not there to punitively punish those who may want to seek attention of the presidency, or indeed those who are in power. Indeed, a traffic offense is traffic offense. It should not be translated into some kind of treason, as we saw in the past. However, this is just for temporal thing, I believe. What we need in Zambia are reserved roads for emergencies and also for VVIPs like the president and the vice president.
Once enacted, the law will prohibit driving in an organized procession except for funerals on public roads without a police permit. Nelson Zulu for Camnet News in Lusaka.
The Zambia Road Safety Trust, ZRST, has expressed concern over the increase of vehicles in the country which inconvenience emergency vehicles such as ambulances and firefighters. ZRST Programs Manager Milo Simwale says government through the Ministry of Infrastructure should provide emergency lanes on the already existing roads before a lasting solution could be put up. Mr. Mwale believes that the increased traffic flow, especially on major routes that lead to essential life-saving facilities, poses a danger to the emergency vehicles in the discharge of their duties to the public. He says government should consider constructing emergency lanes in the country as a lasting solution in order to curtail inconveniences caused by the continued traffic increase in the country. More in the following report.
Notice with concern that there's a lot of delay in terms of responses to all these services that you have mentioned, which affects like the smooth operation. However, this maybe has been due to the inadequate number of lanes that we have, especially on our roads. As you can see, for us, we expected from the discongestion project that we expected to see like dedicated lanes, like for buses, for instance, and also maybe dedicated lanes for the emergency service vehicles, the ambulances, the police and so forth, and other. So it is important that from the number of lanes that we have currently, I think where we have 3 lanes, I think let's dedicate some lanes, like especially maybe the inner lane. The inner lane, maybe that lane should be used like for
Chidabombe district has received approval of over 4 million kwacha for the initial phase of the 2022 CDF. The Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development has approved a number of applications for sponsorship of 14 boarding secondary school bursaries valued at 49,500 kwacha, among other applications. The Council is positive that the second phase of approval of CDF will be done in this quarter, and they are expectant that there are an additional approval of community projects valued at 11.5 million kwacha, as well as 22 applications for skills development, among others, will be granted. This is according to a statement issued to Camnet TV by Chirirawombwe Council Assistant Public Relations Manager Nambela M. Kiombela.
Chirirawombwe Municipal Council wishes to advise and inform members of the general public that we have received the initial approval of the 2022 CDF valued at 4.7 million kwacha. Some of the projects that have been approved under CDF for the initial phase include sponsorship of 14 applications from the boarding secondary school applications valued at 49,500 kwacha. The other approval is 89 applications from the skills development, which are amounting to about 540,000 kwacha. We have also received approval of 26 empowerment grants, that is for both women and the youths, valued at about 488,000 kwacha. 3 community projects have been approved. These are the community projects that were initially not completed from the 2021 CDF and have been carried forward. These are valued at about 3.6 million kwacha, and the projects include completion of the Kamenza East Police Post, completion of an ablution block at the cenotaph, as well as procurement of about 1,500 desks for community primary schools.
We'll take a break. We'll be back with international and sports news.
Team, the trajectory of the business looks very positive, and it looks like we'll be able to launch the ministry.
There's so much data.
Mom? Yes, baby?
It says here, global warming and climate change is caused by the pollution from careless activities of human beings.
Wow!
Son, do you know I can turn my phone into a TV remote?
How's that possible?
It's so easy. Check this out.
Be smart, be fast with mega data from Zamtel. Get your 15 GB mobile data for only 100 kwacha, 30 GB mobile data for only 200 kwacha and your 70 GB LTE data bundle with free Netflix, YouTube, Facebook and WhatsApp. Visit our Facebook page, website or service centers countrywide for more information. Zamtel, your digital lifestyle partner.
The Agriculture and Commercial Show is back, bigger and better under the theme Innovation Through Technology. And as Camnet TV, we are here to transform your business through our technology. Advertise with us on discounted rates during the month of July and during the Agriculture and Commercial Show. Special price package for live stunt interviews, on-screen product placement during the coverage of the show. For more details, call the following numbers. Camnet TV, not just another channel.
Welcome back, and now in international news. Clashes continue in the southeastern Sudanese state of Blue Nile between the Hausa and Berta ethnic groups. Witnesses said thousands of protesters of the Hausa tribe set up a barricade and attacked government buildings in several cities on Monday, July 18. According to health officials, this violence broke out a week ago and more than 60 people have already died while over 150 have been injured. Authorities have deployed the army in the region, imposed a nightly curfew and banned gatherings in some towns. Local sources say the fighting is partly motivated by conflicts over land ownership, but also blame the military government that took power by force last October for creating a security vacuum favoring tribal violence. Here's a roundup of international news for more.
Clashes continue in the southeastern Sudanese state of Blue Nile between the Hausa and Berta ethnic groups. Witnesses said thousands of protesters of the Hausa tribe set up barricades and attacked government buildings in several cities on Monday. This violence broke out a week ago and more than 60 people have already died, while over 150 have been injured, according to officials. Authorities have deployed the army in the region, imposed a nightly curfew and banned gatherings in some towns. Local sources say the fighting is partly motivated by conflicts over land ownership, but also blame the military government that took power by force for creating a security vacuum favouring tribal violence.
Of conservation.
Delegates from across Africa launched Monday in Rwanda the first continent-wide gathering about the role of protected areas in ensuring the future of the planet. The Africa Protected Areas Congress is being held months before the COP15 summit in December, when global leaders are aiming to adopt a much-delayed pact on nature protection.
We have the most beautiful rivers, forests, mountains, and a variety of wildlife that can only be found on this continent. We must therefore spare no effort in protecting and conserving this diversity.
Organizers said the Congress will aim to shape the role of protected and conserved areas in safeguarding Africa's wildlife, delivering vital ecosystem services, and promoting sustainable development. 1 million species are threatened with extinction, according to UN experts.
Just like the rest of the world, Kenya is also faced with the high prices of goods, even as the general elections near. Thousands of Kenya have been taken to the streets, calling for a boycott of the elections because of the high consumer prices. Politicians are also shifting their ways of campaign to promising economic liberation.
Many people are dissatisfied with the current state of our politics. Many Kenyans are preoccupied with the economic situation, the cost of living, and other, in their view, far more important things taking place in their own lives from a day-to-day basis. So I don't think it's any one single factor that's driving the voter apathy, but possibly a perfect storm, a combination of factors that creates a number of difficulties in people's lives, which they're currently dealing with.
Like hundreds of other protesters carrying banners calling themselves the Movement of the Hungry People and the Hunger Revolution, a 68-year-old Beatrice Atieno, a mother of 2 daughters, pleaded for the price of LUS to be reduced. If you're hungry, how can you walk to the polling center to vote? Many people will just sleep in their houses because we won't have the energy to walk or to come out of our houses to go stand in the long lines of people queuing at the polling stations where people will be pushing each other. We won't have the strength for this. Presidential candidates have been making wild promises and assertions to Kenya's poor by tackling endemic corruption, erasing public debt, and providing vulnerable families with stipends or credit and loans without explaining how.
The average Kenyan is very, very politically aware, very politically engaged, and we achieve high voter turnouts with almost every general election. So when you have a voter registration process in which the IEBC falls below its target, that's new, that's a bit of a concern, to be honest.
On 9th August, 22 million Kenyans are eligible to vote. Many of them live below the poverty line, and so the price of staple foods and fuel will play a major part in the election.
Let's now have some sports news. And now in our sports news, the Football Association of Zambia, FAZ, has officially lodged in a complaint with the Confederation of African Football, CAF, against the officiating exhibited by Ethiopian referee Lydia Tafese Abebe during the 2022 Total Energies Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON semi-final match between Zambia and South Africa. In a complaint letter dated 18th July 2022 addressed to CAF General Secretary Veron Mosengo Omba, FAZ General Secretary Adrian Kashala advanced 6 key incidences, including the late-minute penalty awarded to South Africa. In the letter, FAZ is contesting against the decision of the referee to award such a penalty, resulting in a goal which decided against the Zambian team progressing to the finals. FAZ is therefore calling for a serious review of the game and the cancellation of the penalty so that a replay be ordered and that the referee be barred from handling any games. Kashala says FAZ opted to file a complaint as Zambia suffered similar injustices in their quarterfinal victory over Senegal. This is according to a statement issued to Camnet TV by FAZ Communications Manager Sydney Mungala. Meanwhile, a sports analyst Gezani Mbewe says referees that officiate at international tournaments should be critically analyzing mistakes made by the players before making final decisions. In an interview with Camnet Sports, Mbewe says the penalty decision by the referee that officiated at the semi-finals on Monday, 18th July 2022 in a match between Zambia and South Africa was questionable. Mbewe, however, adds that the Copper Queens must move on and concentrate on the World Cup. More in the following report.
Several stakeholders have come on board to condemn the decision of the Ethiopian referee Lydia Tafese that officiated in a match played on the 18th of July 2022 between Zambia and South Africa in the ongoing Women Africa Cup of Nations. Monday, Tafese accorded Banyana a penalty in the late minutes of the second half, which a lot of people found questionable. Camnet Sports engaged a sports analyst Gezani Mbewe, who urged referees that officiate at international tournaments to be professional in their duties.
First, congratulations to the girls. I think the major part is that we qualified to the World Cup, of which is the first time in the history of Zambian football for us to qualify to the World Cup. Yes, of course, a lot of people, we might be talking about what really happened yesterday when we met South Africa. That was the game that I could see that the girls, they played with their ranks out, and tactically I think we were on point. We were able to hold 0-0 up to 80th minute until I think a questionable penalty that was really considered. We want to move to the World Cup as a united Africa. So now if you are trying to bring the enmity between some countries, I think in terms of officiating is not on point. I hope that we should learn something in Africa, that officiating is very, very important. Let the players lose the game according to, if they are able to lose, if they are able to win, let them win according to the merit. We want to take an African team that's going to perform at the World Cup, like we did when we went to the Olympic Games. I think it was on point. Our ladies, they performed very well. Again, tactically, I think for me, we are late for the game.
Post the match, the Republican President Hakainde Hichilema paid tribute to the Zambia women national team's performance despite their 1-0 loss in the semi-finals.
That goal is a questionable penalty, and I think we should really look into it carefully. It was outside the box, but you did a fantastic job. You've done a good run up to now. Semi-finals is good. You've qualified to the World Cup. We are proud of you. On behalf of all the Zambians, we are proud of you. Feel happy, don't be depressed.
Meanwhile, the Football Association of Zambia has lodged a formal complaint to the Confederation of African Football against the officiating exhibited by the referee. In a complaint letter dated 18th July 2022, addressed to CAF General Secretary Veron Mosego Arba, first General Secretary Adrian Kashala advanced 6 key incidences, including the late-minute penalty awarded to South Africa. Blessings Chakwila, Camnet Sports, Lusaka.
And still in sports news, and now in chess, Zambia's top chess players have promised a good outing in the forthcoming FIDE Chess Olympiads slated for India. Speaking to journalists, candidate Master Timothy Kabwe says he expects to mint medals at the showpiece starting on the 26th of July to the 9th of August 2022. Kabwe, however, notes that there was a need to invest in upcoming chess players across the country. Meanwhile, women FIDE master Constance Mbata says she hopes to equally mint medals. More in this report.
It's been 4 years since the last Chess Olympiad after the 2020 edition was cancelled due to the coronavirus pandemic. The Olympiad is the most respected team event in chess, first held in 1928. This year, the 44th Olympiad takes place in Chennai, India from July 28th through to August 9th. More than 100 countries will be competing to win gold, silver and bronze medals for the best combined performance of the open and women's teams. Zambia's top chess players have promised a good outing in the forthcoming FIDE Chess Olympiad.
We want to go there to be counted. We are not going there to be passengers. We are aware that it's the biggest stage in terms of chess. It's the Chess Olympiad, and there will be chess powerhouses like Norway. One of the countries, England, will be there. So expect the very best. In terms of African standings, this time around, we feel Egypt has for a long time stamped its authority as one of the biggest countries in Africa. But this time around, I feel we're up to the challenge, and I feel we'll do much better. We'll bring the much deserved credits to the country.
Of course, if we have more companies coming in on board to sponsor, we'll perform much better than before, so that we can encourage others to come on board also.
Meanwhile, stakeholders have come on board to assist the Zambian chess national team ahead of the tournament. Ashley Holmes-Stowe, regional manager, has donated some kits, amongst other things, to the team.
Malawi. We would like to partner with the Chess Association of Zambia in terms of developing the sport. We really like to develop sports at grassroots level and hope that we can get into a partnership where we can do more for chess. This is just the beginning of a cordial relationship, and we are providing you with 25 of these beautiful t-shirts so that both officials as well as the athletes are able to look presentable.
And the Zambia Chess Federation President Mukubulo Chilufya is thankful for the gesture.
We are traveling to the Olympiads, India, Chennai, from 23rd July to 12th August. So we're very grateful that beautiful companies are coming on board. Danube, Ashley Holmes, and Pound Stretcher. They've come on board to supplement government efforts in ensuring that sports in the country flourishes. With this good gesture, we are very grateful as a federation. We are very proud that you came on board to support the game of chess.
Blessings Chakwila, Camnet Sports, Lusaka.
On that note, we come to the end of our news, but we'll take a look at the headlines again. An unknown Lusaka woman dumps a fetus. A political activist calls for investigation of ministers. Government argues its case for challenging the legality of LUNGU'S immunity. In international news, clashes between ethnic groups continue in the Blue Nile in Sudan. And in sports news, FAS lodges complaint to CAF over Ethiopian referee. We now look at the Camnet verse for the day, which is coming from Isaiah 41, verse 10. The Lord says, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." Thank you once again for watching the news. My name is Jeffrey Ziambo. Good night.